Something is not sitting right with me about the Philadelphia Eagles, and we need to talk about it because the franchise has officially parted ways with legendary offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland. This departure feels like the end of an era given Stoutland's status as arguably the greatest assistant in NFL history. There are really two things we need to break down: the ugly reality of why he left and what this massive leadership vacuum means for our future. The more details surface, the harder it is to ignore the internal friction. Smash that like button, subscribe, and drop your city below. Let's get into it. The Philadelphia Eagles find themselves in the middle of a major organizational shift as longtime offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland has officially departed the franchise. Stoutland, who served as a foundational pillar of this team since 2018, was widely regarded as the best assistant coach in NFL history by many within the league. His departure follows a failed attempt by the team to retain him in a reduced capacity, as he refused to accept a diminished role after the organization decided to pivot toward a Shanahan-McVay style of offensive play. Let's be real, losing a coach of his immense stature and player development skill hits this fan base incredibly hard because we have grown accustomed to watching his units deliver historic performances. The friction reportedly boiled over behind closed doors when head coach Nick Sirianni and his staff began implementing a more collaborative approach to the run game, a move that clashed with how Stoutland preferred to operate his own independent pod. Sirianni has stepped into the spotlight to defend these tactical adjustments, citing the need for a cohesive marriage between the run and pass schemes following a disappointing 2025 season where the offense often lacked efficiency. While the team prepares to move forward with a new staff, the optics of this split are undeniably difficult for us as supporters, especially considering the lack of experience held by the incoming coaches like Sean Mannion and Chris Cooper compared to the legend they are replacing. We have to wonder if these drastic, sweeping changes will actually stabilize the team, or if the loss of such an established voice in the locker room will create even deeper issues on the field. The big question we must now face is whether Sirianni is truly the architect of a necessary evolution, or if he has simply dismantled the most reliable unit on the roster. The most shocking reality facing this organization is that Jeff Stoutland, widely considered the greatest assistant in NFL history, remains under contract with the team while being effectively prohibited from coaching anywhere else until next year. This standoff was triggered by a fundamental disagreement regarding the team identity, as the front office pushed for a transition toward a wide zone stretch running scheme that ignored the foundational techniques Stoutland had championed since 2018. When leadership attempted to retain him in a reduced capacity by stripping away his title as run game coordinator, the situation spiraled into the messy departure we witnessed this past February. Here's what people are missing. The organization was already suffering from the loss of key personnel like TJ Paganetti, who departed for New Orleans, leaving a vacuum in tactical expertise that the coaching staff struggled to fill. The front office views this move as a necessary step to break down the independent silos that historically defined the offensive line unit, aiming instead for a collaborative, integrated approach between the ground game and the passing attack. They believe that by centralizing these concepts, they can better handle the complex defensive looks that stifled the team during the 2025 season. Historically, this team has thrived on continuity, and replacing a pillar like Stoutland with unproven assistants like Sean Mannion and Chris Cooper is an enormous gamble that puts the entire offensive output on the shoulders of the head coach. Behind closed doors, the staff feels they are finally creating a cohesive system that marries play action with consistent run concepts. Yet the optics of losing a legendary teacher remain a significant hurdle for a fan base that values tradition above all else. Sirianni has staked his reputation on this total overhaul, effectively guaranteeing that the success or failure of the upcoming campaign will be measured solely by his own strategic vision. So that is the official word on the coaching staff changes. But let us look closer at what this reality truly means for our future success. And honestly, the departure of a figure as impactful as Jeff Stoutland forces us to reconsider the foundation of our entire offensive identity heading into 2026. This matters right now because the team is essentially betting its championship window on the unproven synergy between Sean Mannion, Ryan Mahaffey, and Chris Cooper. We are shifting away from a siloed, legendary coaching style toward a collaborative model that demands immediate buy-in from every player on the roster. This change ripples through the depth chart, putting immense pressure on our younger offensive linemen to adapt to a complex, zone-heavy scheme without the benefit of their longtime mentor. The immediate impact on our salary cap and roster construction is clear, as we must now rely on coaching scheme adjustments rather than individual mastery to overcome the defensive junk that derailed us last year. When we face our division rivals, we will no longer have the luxury of leaning on a familiar, veteran-led rushing attack to control the clock. Instead, our playoff hopes now hinge on whether this new staff can effectively marry the run and pass games to sustain drives against sophisticated defenses. If the transition to this Shanahan and McVay style fails to click by the time we hit the midseason matchups, our path to the postseason will become narrow very quickly. We have to hope that Nick Sirianni's hands-on approach pays off because he has staked his entire reputation as a head coach on this new, inclusive philosophy. This is a massive gamble for the organization, and we will be watching every single snap closely to see if these calculated risks can finally restore our offensive efficiency against the rest of the league. The departure of Jeff Stoutland marks a definitive shift in organizational philosophy, one that prioritizes a cohesive, collaborative strategy over the influence of a singular, independent authority figure. The primary upside here is the elimination of internal silos, as Nick Sirianni seeks to marry the ground game and passing game through a unified staff approach involving Sean Mannion, Ryan Mahaffey, and Chris Cooper. By forcing a more inclusive process, the Eagles hope to modernize their scheme and adapt to the complex defensive looks that plagued them last season. However, the massive risk remains the loss of a legendary teacher whose reputation for player development is unmatched in league history. Moving away from a proven master for an unproven trio feels like a high-stakes gamble that could jeopardize the foundation of our offensive line. What nobody is talking about is the quiet frustration simmering behind the scenes, as sources indicate the veteran assistant remained deeply unhappy with how his exit was handled by the front office. While some analysts view this as a necessary evolution to keep pace with the modern NFL, others across the league remain skeptical that a committee of assistants can replicate the technical mastery that defined our recent success. Personally, I find the narrative that Sirianni was simply a passenger during our championship years to be completely overblown, as he clearly intervened when the system began to fracture. Here is where I land on this. While the optics of losing a pillar like Stoutland are undeniably painful, the mandate to ensure that every phase of the offense functions as one unit is a smart, forward-thinking move that should have been prioritized long before the 2025 season crumbled. When you combine the structural overhaul of our coaching staff with the departure of a legendary figure like Jeff Stoutland, it becomes clear that the franchise is at a pivotal crossroads. This is where it gets real, as the organization moves away from the independent silo style of the past to embrace a fully collaborative, unified vision for the future. For us as fans, this means we should approach the upcoming season with a measured sense of caution paired with genuine curiosity. While losing a teacher of Stoutland's caliber is a significant hurdle, the shift toward a more cohesive, integrated approach under Nick Sirianni suggests that the team is prioritizing long-term alignment over individual legacy. You should feel invested in this process because, for the first time in several years, the offensive identity will be singular rather than fragmented. We are watching a total recalibration where the run and pass games are finally being married into a single cohesive unit. The success of this transition rests on whether the unproven trio of Sean Mannion, Ryan Mahaffey, and Chris Cooper can effectively implement Sirianni's vision while maintaining the high standard of excellence we have come to expect. It is an ambitious gamble that demands patience from the fan base as these new leaders find their footing. The stakes have never been higher for the front office, as they have fully committed to this new inclusive coaching philosophy that bears the head coach's name entirely. Does the move toward this integrated, collaborative coaching structure make you more confident in our offensive potential for the upcoming year? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Fly, Eagles, fly. I'll see you in the next one.